I should have stayed inside where it was safe, where no one could see me deflate against the balcony railing or hear the masked man behind me say, "Rough night," in a voice that shouldn't have made my pulse stutter. But when I turned and saw him watching me with that unnerving focus, something snapped. I was so tired of being careful, of managing everyone else's needs. And in that moment, I needed to do something reckless that was mine alone. So I crossed the space between us and kissed him. He went still for half a second. Then his hand came up to cup the back of my head, and he kissed me back like he'd been waiting for permission. The December air bit at my exposed shoulders, but his mouth was warm and sure, and for 10 perfect seconds, I let myself forget that I was Leora Ames, coordinator extraordinaire, professional problem solver, woman with a 5-year plan that was currently crumbling around her ears. When I pulled back, my hands were shaking. I started. Unexpected, he finished. His voice was calm, but his breathing wasn't quite steady. The ornate bronze mask covered most of his face, nose, cheekbones, forehead, leaving only his mouth and jawline visible in the dim balcony light. Expensive suit, expensive watch, the kind of stillness that came from real power. I should go back inside. Should you? I should. The gala was in full swing. Tamsin would be looking for me. There were probably 3 small fires that needed putting out, and here I was on a balcony, kissing a stranger whose face I couldn't even see. "Yes," I said, but I didn't move. He studied me with unnerving intensity. "You run events like this. How did you? I've been watching you all night." He said it matter-of-factly, like it wasn't the kind of statement that should make my stomach flip. "You fixed a seating crisis, calmed a donor having a meltdown about the wine selection, and prevented what looked like a very awkward encounter between 2 board members who clearly hate each other. That's my job. You're good at it. I'm leaving it." The words slipped out before I could stop them. I never talked about this with donors, never showed weakness or uncertainty. His head tilted slightly. "Why?" "Because I'm tired of being good at managing other people's visions while my own life stays small and safe and suffocating." I stopped, horrified. "I don't know why I just told you that. Because I'm a stranger, and strangers are safe. Are you?" I looked at him more carefully, trying to see past the mask into the shadows. "Safe, I mean." His mouth curved, but it wasn't quite a smile. "No." I should have been scared. Instead, I felt more awake than I had in months. "I have to go," I said. This time, I actually moved. He didn't stop me, but as I reached the balcony door, he said, "Good luck with whatever comes next." I walked back inside, my heart hammering, and didn't look back. The rest of the gala passed in a blur of logistics and forced smiles. By the time the last donor left and the cleanup crew started breaking down tables, it was past midnight and my feet were screaming in my heels. Tamsin found me in the kitchen, inventorying leftover wine bottles. "You did it," she said, pulling me into a hug that smelled like her signature lavender perfume. "Another flawless safe haven event. I don't know how we're going to manage without you." Guilt twisted in my stomach. "You'll be fine. Jessica's been shadowing me for months." "Jessica's good, but she's not you," Tamsin pulled back, her eyes serious. "Are you sure about this? Starting your own firm is risky, Leora, and you know how much we need you here." I did know. I'd worked at Safe Haven Women's Foundation for 3 years, watching women rebuild their lives after leaving situations that had nearly destroyed them. Women like my mother could have been if she'd ever had the courage to leave. But I also knew that if I stayed, I'd still be here in 10 years, underpaid and overworked, making other people's visions come to life while my own dreams stayed locked in a drawer. "I'm sure," I said. "But you know I'll always care about this place." Tamsin sighed. "I know. And actually," she pulled an envelope from her purse, "I might have a going-away present for you, a potential first client." I took the envelope cautiously. "What kind of client?" "The kind who saw you work tonight and was impressed. He's interested in hosting a private fundraising event focused on women's initiatives. Very high profile, very generous budget." She paused. "He asked for you specifically." My pulse quickened. "Who?" "He wants to meet with you first. Tomorrow, if you're available. His office." She handed me a business card. The name on it made my breath catch. Severin Viscari. I'd heard whispers about him. Reclusive investor, serious money, connections that made people nervous and respectful in equal measure. This is Tamsin. This could make my entire first year. I know. That's why I'm giving you his information, even though it kills me to lose you. She squeezed my hand. Just be careful, Leora. Men with that much power don't do anything without a reason. I should have slept that night. Instead, I lay awake in my tiny apartment, researching Severin Viscari on my laptop. There wasn't much. A few photos from charity events, always in the background, face partially obscured or turned away. Articles mentioning his investment group but never quoting him directly. One profile piece that called him the ghost of New York finance, present everywhere, visible nowhere. And one small mention of the Solace Fund, his private foundation that quietly funded women's shelters and survivor support services. I told myself I was being ridiculous, but I couldn't shake the feeling that I already knew exactly who I'd be meeting tomorrow. Severin Viscari's office was in a building that made me feel underdressed despite my best interview suit. The receptionist led me to a conference room on the 43rd floor, all glass walls and a view that made my stomach drop. I'd prepared a portfolio, a pitch deck, 3 different event concepts. When the door opened, 3 men entered. 2 were clearly security or advisors, hard-faced, watchful, positioning themselves near the door. The third was Severin Viscari. Dark suit, dark eyes, sharp cheekbones, and a profile I might have seen last night. In shadows, below a bronze mask. "Miss Ames," he said, and my stomach flipped because that voice, that calm, measured voice, was familiar in a way that made my face heat. "Thank you for coming. Mr. Viscari." I kept my voice professional, even as my heart hammered. It could be him, or I could be projecting because I wanted it to be him, which was insane. He gestured to the table. "Please sit." I sat, hyper-aware of his every movement as he took the seat across from me. He didn't smile, didn't give anything away, just watched me with that same unnerving intensity. "Focus, Leora." "Tamsin mentioned you're interested in hosting a fundraising event," I said, opening my portfolio with hands that were almost steady. "I've prepared several concepts based on—" "Tell me about your approach to donor cultivation," he interrupted. "Specifically, how you handle donors who want credit without doing the actual work of caring." I blinked. Most clients wanted to talk budgets and guest lists, not philosophy. "I don't," I said. "Handle them, I mean. If someone's only in it for the photo opportunity, they're not a good fit for organizations like Safe Haven. We need people who understand the mission, not just the optics. Even if they have significant resources, especially then. Money without genuine commitment can do more harm than good. It creates dependency, then disappears when the donor gets bored or finds a shinier cause." One of the men by the door shifted. Severin leaned back slightly, studying me. "You're willing to turn away money." "I'm willing to turn away the wrong money," I corrected. "There's a difference." "And how do you identify the difference?" I ask questions. I watch how they talk about the people we serve. Are they victims who need saving, or survivors who need support? I look at their other commitments. I trust my instincts. I met his gaze. And I'm not afraid to tell powerful men when their approach is wrong. Something flickered across his face. "Tamsin said you were direct. Is that a problem?" "No." He pushed a folder across the table. "It's exactly what I need." I opened it. The proposed budget made my vision blur. "This is very generous." "The Solace Fund takes women's safety seriously," he said. "I want an intimate event. 50 guests, invitation only. Elegant, discreet. Focused on tangible support for shelters and survivor services. No performative charity. No vapid socialites looking for Instagram content." I studied the brief, my mind already racing through logistics. "You want people who'll actually write checks and show up when it matters." "Precisely. That's going to be a careful curation. I'll need to vet the guest list thoroughly. You'll have full access to my team's research." He paused. "But I'll make final approval on all attendees." Red flag. I looked up sharply. "I need autonomy over messaging and event structure. If you're going to micromanage—" "I'm not micromanaging. I'm protecting something that matters to me." His voice was quiet but absolute. "These organizations save lives. I won't let this event become a circus, and I won't let the wrong people infiltrate it for their own purposes." The intensity in his tone caught me off guard. This wasn't about ego or control. This was personal. "Why this cause?" I asked. "Most men with your resources focus on hospitals or universities, things that get their names on buildings." The room went very quiet. "That's not an appropriate question," one of the advisors said sharply. But Severin raised a hand, and the man went silent. "Because sometimes," Severin said, his eyes locked on mine, "the only thing standing between a woman and complete destruction is a place that will believe her and protect her, no questions asked. And those places shouldn't have to beg for the resources to do their work." My throat tightened. He meant it. Every word. "I have terms," I said quietly. "I'm listening. I control the messaging. I won't help you launder your reputation if that's what this is. I need transparency about how this event is framed publicly, and I won't court donors who make my instincts scream, regardless of their bank accounts." The advisor looked like he wanted to object. Severin just nodded. "Acceptable. My terms? What are yours? You work directly with me. You report to me, and only me." His voice was soft, almost gentle. "And you understand that my world has risks. Once you're in, backing out becomes complicated." My mother's voice echoed in my head. "Never let a man control your money. Never let yourself need someone more than they need you." But this wasn't my mother's life. This was mine. And I was making this choice with my eyes open. "I accept," I said. Severin stood, extending his hand across the table. "Then welcome to the Solace Fund, Ms. Ames." I shook his hand. His grip was firm, warm, and it lingered just a moment too long. "One more thing," he said as I gathered my portfolio. "The main elevator is under maintenance. I'll escort you to the service elevator." "That's not necessary. I insist." We walked down a quiet hallway, his two advisors trailing at a distance. The service elevator was older, smaller, tucked in a corner away from the building's sleek main lobby. The doors closed behind us. We were alone. Severin pressed the button for the parking garage. Then he hit the emergency stop. The elevator jerked to a halt. "What are you doing?" My voice came out breathless. He turned to face me, and suddenly the space felt impossibly small. "Tell me something, Leora. Last night on the balcony, did you know who I was?" My stomach dropped. "What?" "The bronze mask." He stepped closer. "The kiss. The air left my lungs. That was you? You didn't know. It wasn't a question." Something that might have been satisfaction crossed his face. "How could I? The mask covered your entire face. It was dark, and I didn't even know your name," I said, heat flooding my cheeks as the pieces clicked into place. "You were watching me all night. You already knew you were going to offer me this job." "I was considering it." "And the balcony?" "Was unplanned." He moved closer, and my back hit the elevator wall. "You surprised me. You let me walk in there and pitch to you like a professional seeking a client, which is exactly what you are." He braced one hand against the wall beside my head, not touching but close enough that I could feel the heat of him. "But let's not pretend that's all this is. We have a professional relationship now." "We do." His other hand came up, fingers brushing my jaw. "Which makes this complicated." "Then stop." "Stop what? Telling you the truth?" His thumb traced my lower lip, and my breath caught. "I watched you all night at that gala. Watched you smile for people who don't see you, manage crises for an organization that pays you half what you're worth. Watched you dim your own light so everyone else could shine. You don't know anything about me. I know you're brilliant and tired of being invisible." His voice dropped lower. "I know you kissed a stranger on a balcony because for one moment, you wanted something just for yourself. Something reckless and real and yours." He was right, and I hated that he was right. "I know you deserve to be seen," he said quietly. I should have pushed him away, should have demanded he restart the elevator. Instead, I grabbed his tie and pulled him down and kissed him. This time, there was nothing tentative about it. His hands framed my face, mine twisted in his shirt. and when his tongue swept into my mouth, I made a sound I'd be embarrassed about later. He pressed closer, pinning me against the elevator wall, and I felt the barely leashed control in the way he held me, like he wanted to devour me but was forcing himself to go slow. He pulled back first, breathing hard. This complicates things. I noticed. We have a contract now. I noticed that too. He studied me for a long moment, then reached over and restarted the elevator. As it began descending, he said, "Dinner, tomorrow night. We'll discuss event logistics." Is that what we'll discuss? Among other things. The elevator doors opened to the parking garage. He held them open for me. "I'll send a car." I stepped out, then turned back. "Severin? Yes?" "You're right. I do want to be seen." I met his eyes. "But I won't disappear into your world just because it's bigger than mine. I've watched that destroy someone I love, and I won't let it happen to me." Something shifted in his eye. Expression, surprise, maybe, or respect. "Good. I wouldn't want you any other way." I walked to my car on shaking legs and didn't look back, but I felt his eyes on me the entire way. The car Severin sent wasn't just a car. It was a town car with a driver who opened the door for me and didn't speak, except to confirm my address. I'd changed outfits 4 times, settled on a black dress that was professional enough for a business dinner, but fit well enough that I didn't feel like I was hiding. My hands were shaking as I applied lipstick. This is just logistics, I told myself. Event planning, budget discussions. I was a terrible liar, even to myself. The restaurant was the kind of place that didn't have prices on the menu. Small, elegant, with tables spaced far enough apart that conversations stayed private. Severin was already there, standing when I approached. "Leora," he pulled out my chair. "You look beautiful." "This is a business dinner," I said, sitting. "It is." He took his seat across from me, and the faint smile on his face said he knew exactly what game we were playing. "Shall we discuss the guest list?" We did, for approximately 10 minutes. Then his hand brushed mine, reaching for the wine bottle, and the conversation shifted. "Tell me about your mother," he said. I froze, glass halfway to my lips. "Excuse me. Yesterday, you said you'd watch someone you love be destroyed by disappearing into someone else's world. You meant your mother." "That's not appropriate business conversation." "No," he agreed. "It's not." I should have changed the subject. Instead, I heard myself say, "She married a man who seemed charming and successful. He convinced her to quit her job, said he'd take care of everything. Then he controlled every dollar, every decision. When he left, she was buried in debt she didn't know existed, with no recent work history and too much shame to ask for help." Severin's expression didn't change, but something in his eyes sharpened. "Where is she now?" "She rebuilt. Slowly. She works as a bookkeeper, lives in a small apartment, and will never, ever depend on a man again." I met his gaze. "And she raised me to be exactly the same way." "Is that why you're starting your own firm? Instead of taking a better position somewhere established?" "I'm starting my own firm because I'm tired of building other people's dreams, while mine stays small and safe." I took a sip of wine. "But yes, I need to know I can survive on my own, that I'll never be trapped by someone else's money or power. Even mine, especially yours." He leaned back, studying me. "Do I scare you, Leora?" "Yes." "Good. You should be scared." He said it matter-of-factly. "I operate in a world that has rules you don't understand, and consequences you've never had to consider. But here's what I want you to understand. I will never use money to control you. I will never make you dependent on me and then pull the rug out." "How do I know that?" "You don't. Not yet." He paused. "But I'm going to prove it to you." Before I could ask what he meant, his phone buzzed. He glanced at it, and his expression hardened. "I need to make a call. Excuse me." He stepped away to a quiet corner. I watched him through the low lighting, saw the rigid set of his shoulders, the sharp gesture he made with his free hand. When he returned, his face was carefully neutral, but I'd spent 3 years reading wealthy people's moods. "What's wrong?" I asked. "Nothing that concerns the event." "That's not what I asked." He studied me for a long moment. "Someone's been asking questions about the Solace Fund." About the organizations we support, my stomach tightened. What kind of questions? The kind that suggests someone's looking for vulnerabilities. He signaled for the check. I'm going to have additional security assigned to you. What? No, I don't need. This isn't negotiable. His voice was quiet but absolute. If you're working with me, you're under my protection. That's not optional. You don't get to make decisions about my safety without consulting me. I just did. Anger flared hot in my chest. This is exactly what I was talking about. You can't just… Leora, he leaned forward, and there was something almost gentle in his expression despite the steel in his voice. I understand your need for independence. I respect it. But my world has threats, yours doesn't. And I will not let you be collateral damage because you're too stubborn to accept help. Help and control aren't the same thing. I know, which is why I'm telling you what's happening instead of doing it behind your back. He stood, offering his hand. Come, there's something I want to show you. The car took us to a building in Tribeca. Severin's building, apparently. He used a private key for the elevator, which opened directly into a penthouse that took my breath away. Floor-to-ceiling windows, city lights spreading out like scattered diamonds, furniture that was elegant without being cold, and artwork that actually meant something instead of just filling space. This is where you live, I said. Sometimes. He poured 2 glasses of scotch from a crystal decanter, handed me one. I have other properties, but this is where I come when I need to think. I took the glass but didn't drink. Why did you bring me here? Because I want you to understand something. He moved to the window, looking out at the city. My sister, Annalise, was in a relationship with a man who hurt her, controlled her, made her believe she had no options and nowhere to go. My breath caught. Severin. I had power, money, connections. I could have made him disappear. His voice was flat, emotionless, but any move I made would have put her in more danger. He had protection, social standing, and he knew exactly how to make it look like she was unstable, unreliable. If I'd acted, she would have been the one blamed. What happened? Safe haven happened. He turned to face me. They got her out quietly, changed her identity, relocated her, gave her resources to start over. She's safe now, living under a new name in a place he'll never find her. The pieces clicked into place. That's why you fund women's shelters. That's why I protect them, his eyes locked on mine. Because sometimes the only thing standing between a woman and complete destruction is an organization willing to believe her and protect her. No questions asked. And those organizations shouldn't have to beg for resources or worry about funding. I set down my glass with shaking hands. The questions someone's asking about the Solace Fund could lead back to Annalise if they dig deep enough, could expose where she is, who she's become. He moved closer. So yes, Leora, I'm assigning security to you, because if someone's targeting my philanthropic work, they're targeting everything connected to it, including you. Who would do that? Someone who wants to hurt me, or someone who wants to exploit the infrastructure I've built. His jaw tightened. I'm working on identifying them. I should have been terrified. Maybe I was. But mostly, I was angry on behalf of a woman I'd never met, and furious at the idea that someone would weaponize organizations that saved lives. What do you need from me? I asked. I need you to continue planning the gala as if nothing's wrong. I need you to be observant. If anyone approaches you asking strange questions, if you notice anything unusual in the donor patterns, tell me immediately. He paused. And I need you to trust me enough to let me keep you safe. Trust has to be earned. I know. He stepped closer, and suddenly I was very aware of how alone we were, how the city lights threw shadows across his face. Let me earn it. How? Instead of answering, he crossed to a desk and pulled out a folder. These are the financial records for the Solace Fund. Every donation, every disbursement, every organization we support. I'm giving you complete transparency. I took the folder, stunned. You're just handing me this? You said you needed transparency. I'm giving it to you. His voice was quiet. Look through everything. Ask any questions you want. I won't hide how my money moves. I opened the folder, scanning pages of detailed financial records. Donations to Safe Haven, to 3 other shelters across the state, to legal aid organizations and counseling services. Everything looked legitimate. More than legitimate. It looked careful, thoughtful, designed to actually help, rather than just check a charity box. I looked up at him. This is extraordinary. It's necessary. He moved closer, and I could smell his cologne, something dark and expensive that made my head swim. Do you believe me now, that I won't use money to control you? I believe you're more complicated than I thought. I'll take it. His hand came up, fingers brushing my jaw. Leora, I need you to understand something. The chemistry between us, it's real and it's not going away. But I will never let it compromise your autonomy or your business. How can you promise that? Because I've seen what happens when a woman loses herself to a man's world. I watched my sister nearly die because of it. His thumb traced my lower lip. I won't do that to you, even if it means keeping my distance when everything in me wants the opposite. My heart was hammering. And what does everything in you want? You know what I want. I did. I could see it in the tension in his shoulders, the careful control in how he touched me, the hunger in his eyes that he was forcing himself to bank. This is a bad idea, I whispered. Terrible idea, he agreed. We have a professional relationship. We do. I told myself I wouldn't. Leora, his voice was rough. If you don't want this, tell me now. I'll take you home. We'll keep everything professional. But if you stay, I kissed him. This time, there was no elevator to stop us, no professional boundary to hide behind. His hands slid into my hair, tilting my head back. And when his tongue swept into my mouth, I heard myself make a sound that was pure need. He walked me backward until my back hit the window, the cold glass a shock against my bare shoulders. His mouth moved to my throat, my collarbone, and my fingers dug into his shoulders. Tell me to stop, he said against my skin. No. He pulled back just enough to look at me, his eyes dark and intense. Tell me what you want. My voice broke. I want to feel something that's mine, that I'm choosing. You're sure? I'm sure. He kissed me again, harder this time, less controlled. His hands mapped my body through the fabric of my dress, and when his fingers found the zipper at my back, he paused. Yes, he asked. Yes. The zipper lowered. Cool air hit my spine. His mouth followed the path his fingers had traced, and I gasped. We moved to the couch, or maybe he carried me. I wasn't entirely sure. All I knew was that his shirt was unbuttoned. My dress was pooling at my waist, and his hands were everywhere, learning me, claiming me. You're extraordinary, he said against my skin. You don't know me. I'm learning. His mouth found mine again. And everything I learn makes me want more. My hands fumbled at his clothes, desperate to feel skin. He caught my wrists, pinning them gently above my head. Not yet, he said. Not like this. Not when you're still deciding if you trust me. I chose to be here. And I'm choosing to wait until there's no doubt in your mind that this is what you want. Not an impulse. Not a way to feel in control. He kissed me softly, then released my wrists. Not tonight. Frustration and something that felt dangerously like relief warred in my chest. You're stopping. I'm pausing. He pulled back, his breathing unsteady. There's a difference. He helped me fix my dress with gentle hands, then poured me another glass of scotch. We sat on opposite ends of the couch, close enough to touch, but giving each other space. Tell me about your firm, he said. Your actual plans, not the pitch version. So I did. Told him about the business loan I'd taken out, the tiny office space I was renting, my terror that I'd fail and end up worse off than when I started. Told him about my first invoice coming due and how this one contract with him was literally the difference between survival and disaster. He listened without interrupting, and when I finished, he said, What if I told you I wanted to invest in your firm? My stomach dropped. No. Hear me out. No. I stood, anger and something that felt like betrayal flooding through me. This is exactly what I said I wouldn't do. Let you become my financial safety net. It's not a safety net. It's a business investment. It's control with a different name, my voice rose. You just said you understood why I needed independence. And now you're offering to, bankroll me? Make me dependent on you. That's not what I meant. Then what did you mean? I grabbed my purse. Because from where I'm standing, This looks exactly like what happened to my mother. A powerful man offering to help in ways that eventually become chains. His jaw tightened. I'm not your mother's husband. Prove it. I moved toward the door. Let me build my business on my own. Let me succeed or fail based on my own skills, not your money. Leora, the gala contract is enough, more than enough. I stopped at the door, turned back. I want this, Severin. I want you, but not if it costs me myself. For a long moment, he just looked at me. Then he nodded slowly. All right, no investment. You build your firm your way. He moved closer but didn't touch me. But the security stays. That's non-negotiable. Fine. And the transparency. You have full access to everything related to the gala and the Solace Fund. Agreed. And when you're ready, when there's no doubt in your mind, you come back here. His voice was quiet but intense. Because this isn't finished, Leora. Not even close. I know. He called his driver to take me home. In the car, I tried to slow my racing heart, tried to process everything that had just happened. My phone buzzed. A text from an unknown number. You're in over your head with Viscari. If you're smart, you'll walk away before you become collateral damage. My blood went cold. I stared at the message, then looked out the window at the city lights blurring past. What had I just gotten myself into? I didn't tell Severin about the text. I should have. I knew I should have. But something about the message felt personal, targeted specifically at me, and I needed to understand what I was dealing with before I brought it to him. Besides, I had work to do. The next 3 days were a blur of vendor meetings, guest list revisions, and late-night phone calls with Severin about event logistics. We kept everything professional, mostly, except for the way his voice dropped when he said my name, or the charged silences that stretched too long before one of us remembered what we were supposed to be discussing. The security detail he'd assigned followed me everywhere. A man named David, silent and efficient, who positioned himself outside my office, my apartment, anywhere I went. It should have felt oppressive. Instead, it felt like proof that Severin kept his word. On the 4th day, I was reviewing donation pledges for the Solace Gala when I saw it. A name that made my stomach drop. Catalyst Holdings, LLC. I pulled up my files from Safe Haven's Christmas Gala. Found the same name, $15,000 donation. That alone wasn't unusual. Corporate donors often supported multiple causes, but something about seeing it in both places made my instincts scream. I started digging, found 2 more matches, then a third. 4 companies total that had donated to Safe Haven's gala and were now pledging to Severin's event. I cross-referenced the amounts, the dates, the corporate structures, and that's when I saw the pattern. These weren't random donations. They were carefully timed, carefully sized to look legitimate without drawing attention. But when I traced the corporate registrations, 3 of the 4 companies led back to entities that had been dissolved 2 years ago. Right after Severin told me he'd cut ties with Silas. These were ghost companies, shells designed to look real just long enough to build a paper trail. My hands were shaking when I called Severin. We need to meet, I said. Now. We met at a small restaurant in Greenwich Village, private room in the back. David stationed himself outside the door. I spread the papers across the table between us before Severin had even sat down. These donors, I said, my voice tight. They appear on both Safe Haven's Christmas Gala list and your Solace Gala pledges. Same companies, different amounts. Severin's expression didn't change, but I saw the way his jaw tightened. How many? 4 that I've confirmed. But Severin, when I trace the corporate structures, they connect back to companies that were dissolved 2 years ago. The same time I cut Silas off. He studied the documents, his face growing colder with each page. He's been building this for over a year. Building what? A frame? He looked up at me. These donations establish a pattern, small amounts over time to build legitimacy. Then when he tips off investigators, it looks like Safe Haven and the Solace Fund are part of an ongoing money laundering operation. The room felt like it was tilting. That would destroy Safe Haven. Everything they've built, all the women they help. That's the point. His voice was flat. Silas doesn't just want to hurt me. He wants to destroy the one thing he knows I actually care about protecting. Your sister, and every woman like her. He pulled out his phone. I need the complete financial records for both events. Every donation, every pledge, every wire transfer. I don't have access to all of Safe Haven's records anymore. I'd need Tamsin to then get them. His eyes met mine, and there was something desperate beneath the control. Please, Leora, if he's building what I think he's building, we have maybe 48 hours before he triggers the investigation. I called Tamsin, made up an excuse about needing to verify some donor information for my own records. She sent over the files within an hour, no questions asked. Because she trusted me. God, I hoped I wasn't about to make that trust destroy her. I spent that night in my apartment, cross-referencing every donation against corporate databases, tracking shell company connections, building a timeline that made my stomach turn. It was past 2 in the morning when Severin knocked on my door. I let him in. He looked exhausted, his tie loosened, hair disheveled like he'd been running his hands through it. Show me what you found, he said. I walked him through it. Every connection, every suspicious timing, every donation that lined up just a little too perfectly with Safe Haven's advocacy wins or Severin's other charitable moves. He's not just framing us for money laundering, I said, my voice shaking. He's making it look like we're profiting from the tragedies we're supposed to be preventing. Every time Safe Haven helps a woman escape abuse, there's a donation. Every time your fund supports new legislation, there's a donation. It's going to look like we're exploiting survivors. Severin's hands clenched into fists on the table. When investigators see this pattern, they won't just freeze our accounts. They'll question every woman who's ever been helped by these organizations, make them relive their trauma to prove they weren't part of a scheme. And your sister will be exposed when they dig into why I fund these specific shelters. Her new identity, her location, everything. His voice cracked slightly. He's going to destroy her life to get to me. I reached for his hand without thinking. He gripped it like a lifeline. There has to be a way to stop this, I said. There is. He looked at me, and I saw the decision already made in his eyes. I dismantle the connections, publicly distance myself from the Solace Fund, from Safe Haven, from every organization that could be implicated. That's exactly what he wants. It protects them. If I'm not connected, the investigation focuses on me, not them. And you go down alone. I pulled my hand back. While he gets exactly what he wanted, you destroyed and isolated, with all your charitable work painted as a front. Better me than no. I stood up, anger flooding through me. Don't you dare make this about noble sacrifice. You're talking about abandoning organizations that actually save lives because one vindictive man wants to hurt you. I'm talking about protecting vulnerable women from being dragged through an investigation that will re-traumatize them. By proving that powerful men can't be trusted, my voice rose. By showing every survivor that even the places that helped them were just pawns in some criminal game. That's the real damage, Severin. Not the investigation, the message it sends. He stood towering over me. Then what do you suggest? Because I'm open to alternatives that don't end with Annalise being found or Safe Haven being destroyed. I don't know yet. The admission felt like failure. But walking away isn't the answer. My phone buzzed on the table. Unknown number. We both stared at it. I answered on speaker. Ms. Ames. The voice was smooth, cultured, with an edge of amusement. I hope I'm not interrupting. Who is this? I asked, even though I already knew. Silas Corver. Though I suspect Severin's already told you all about me. A pause. Is he there? I'd hate for him to miss this conversation. Severin's face had gone absolutely cold. He mouthed one word. Trace. I kept Silas talking. What do you want? I want to offer you the same opportunity I offered 3 days ago. Walk away. Your firm is new enough that you can claim ignorance about Viscari's operations. You'll be questioned, certainly, but with the right lawyer, you'll be fine. And if I don't, then you go down with him. Your firm, your reputation, your future, all destroyed because you were too idealistic to see what he really is. His voice hardened. Tell me, Ms. Ames, Has he told you everything about how the Solace Fund operates? About where the money actually comes from? Ice slid down my spine. I looked at Severin, saw something flicker in his expression. What are you talking about? I asked. Ask him about the real estate acquisitions, the shell companies he uses to buy properties, the same structure I'm using now. Ask him if every dollar that funds those noble shelters is as clean as he claims. You're lying. Am I? Or is he? Silas laughed. You're smart, Ms. Ames. Smart enough to find my pattern. Smart enough to know when someone's using you. The question is, are you smart enough to save yourself? The line went dead. I turned to Severin slowly. What is he talking about? Leora. The shell companies. The real estate structure. My voice was shaking. Is he lying? No. Severin's voice was quiet. He's not lying. Not entirely. The room spun. Explain. Now. He took a breath. The money that funds the Solace Fund is clean. Every donation, every grant, every dollar that goes to shelters, it's legitimate. But some of the properties those organizations use, the buildings they operate in, I acquired them through shell companies to maintain anonymity. Shell companies. I repeated it like the words were in a foreign language. The same structures Silas is using to frame us. The structures aren't illegal. The way I use them was legitimate. But yes, they're similar. Similar enough that when investigators look at the pattern, they'll see you using the exact same methods as the criminal scheme. I backed away from him. You knew. You knew Silas could do this because you taught him how. I taught him how to protect privacy, not how to frame innocent people. But you gave him the blueprint. My voice broke. Everything he's doing, every shell company and donation pattern and timing structure. He learned it from working for you. Yes. Severin's face was anguished. I created the system he's weaponizing. I brought him into this world. His attack on these organizations is possible because of structures I built. The truth of it hit me like a physical blow. I'd walked into this thinking I was helping protect something good. Thinking I was partnering with someone who, despite his dark world, had genuine ethics about the vulnerable. But the infrastructure being used to destroy Safe Haven, Severin had built it. I need you to leave, I said quietly. Leora? Now, please. I couldn't look at him. I need to think. Let me explain. You just did. I finally met his eyes. You built something that could help people, and you built it in a way that made it vulnerable to exactly this kind of attack. And now Safe Haven, my firm, women who trusted these organizations, were all collateral damage in a war between you and someone you trained. That's not fair, isn't it? I felt tears burning. You brought me into this. You made me trust you, made me believe that what we were building mattered. And all of it is built on the same system that's about to destroy everything. He looked like I'd struck him. I never meant, I know. And that was the worst part. I did know. I could see the genuine anguish on his face, the horror at what his past was creating. But intent doesn't change impact. Please go. He stood there for another long moment. Then he turned and left. The door closed behind him with a quiet click that sounded like an ending. I sank to the floor, surrounded by papers that proved everything was connected, the good and the bad, the protection and the weapon, all tangled together until you couldn't separate them. My phone was still on the table. I stared at it for a long time. Then I made a decision that terrified me. I called Agent Reeves. The meeting happened at 7 a.m. in a coffee shop near the Financial Crimes Office. Agent Reeves looked surprised to see me. Ms. Ames, I wasn't expecting to hear from you. I have information about a developing financial fraud scheme targeting charitable organizations. I slid a folder across the table, and I need to report it before it destroys innocent people. She opened the folder. Her expression sharpened as she read. These are shell companies making donations to multiple nonprofit organizations, she said slowly, including one you work for, Safe Haven. Worked for. I left 3 weeks ago. I kept my voice steady. I'm now an independent fundraising consultant. Safe Haven's director gave me these records because I asked about donor verification for my due diligence process. And you're bringing this to us because? Because the pattern suggests someone is using these organizations to launder money or build a criminal framework. And because when I started asking questions, I received threatening messages. I showed her the text. She read them, her face unreadable. Do you know who's behind this? I have suspicions, but I want the investigation to follow the evidence, not my assumptions. Very careful answer, Ms. Ames. She closed the folder. What about your current client, Severin Viscari? My chest tightened. What about him? He's connected to Safe Haven through the Solace Fund. He's also your client for a similar event. Don't you find that coincidental? I find it concerning, which is why I'm here. I met her eyes. If Mr. Viscari is involved in something criminal, I want to know. If he's being targeted because someone wants to destroy his legitimate charitable work, I want to know that too. Either way, I won't let my firm be part of a scheme. Another long look. You understand that by bringing this to us, you're opening yourself up to investigation as well. I understand. I have all my records available. Contracts, communications, financial statements. Everything is documented and transparent. And if we determine that Viscari is involved, I thought about Severin's face when he told me about Annalise, about the way he'd given me complete financial transparency, about the real pain in his eyes when he'd realized what Silas was doing. But I also thought about Safe Haven and the women who depended on it, about my mother and the systems that had failed her, about the fact that good intentions didn't excuse the damage caused by careless infrastructure. Then I'll cooperate fully, I said. My loyalty is to the truth and to protecting the organizations that actually help people, not to any individual, regardless of my personal feelings. Agent Reeves studied me for a long moment. Then she nodded. We'll be in touch, Ms. Ames. Don't leave the city, and don't discuss this investigation with anyone, including Vescari. Understood. I walked out of that coffee shop feeling like I'd just betrayed someone who trusted me. But I'd also potentially saved something that mattered more than one complicated man, even if he never forgave me for it. He showed up at my apartment that evening. David was still positioned outside my door. Severin hadn't pulled my security despite everything, which somehow made the guilt worse. I'd refused the safe house, refused to be locked away while decisions were made around me, but standing here now, about to face him after what I'd done, part of me wished I'd accepted any barrier between us. I opened the door because I knew he wouldn't leave until I did. You went to the authorities, he said. No anger in his voice, just flat certainty. Yes. Without telling me. Yes. He stepped inside without being invited. Why? Because you were going to sacrifice yourself and abandon the organizations. And because I needed to control at least one piece of the situation. I crossed my arms. I told them the truth, that I found a suspicious pattern and I'm concerned about fraud targeting nonprofits. You gave them my name. I gave them facts. They already know about your connection to Safe Haven and the Solace Fund. And when they dig deeper and find the shell companies I use for property acquisition, the structures that look identical to what Silas is doing, then you'll have to explain why your use was legitimate and his isn't. I met his eyes. Can you? I don't know. The admission seemed to cost him. The structures are similar enough that a prosecutor looking for a pattern will find one, especially if Silas has documentation showing I trained him. Then maybe you should have been more careful about who you trained and how you built your systems. The words came out harsher than I intended. I'm sorry, that's not— No, you're right. He moved to the window, staring out at the city. I built something that I thought would protect privacy and help vulnerable people. I didn't think hard enough about how it could be weaponized. And now everyone I tried to protect is going to pay for my carelessness. The defeat in his voice broke something in me. I didn't go to the authorities to hurt you, I said quietly. I went because it was the only move I had that might reframe this before Silas controls the narrative. If we go to them first, if we present as people trying to stop fraud, rather than people caught committing it, it might work, or it might accelerate everything. He turned to face me. Leora, I need you to understand something. What you did was smart. Strategically, it was probably the right move. But it also means you've painted a target on yourself that I can't protect you from. I don't need you to protect me. Yes, you do. Because Silas just lost his advantage, the element of surprise. And when cornered, he's going to get aggressive. Severin moved closer. I need you to disappear for the next 48 hours. Go to the secure property. Let my people. No. Leora, I'm not hiding while you handle this alone. I found the pattern. I went to the authorities. I'm in this fight whether you want me to be or not. I stepped closer to him. And if you try to push me out or lock me away for my own safety, you'll prove that you're exactly what I was afraid of. A man who uses protection as control. His jaw clenched. That's not what this is. Then what is it? It's me, terrified that the woman He stopped, took a breath. It's me, scared that the person I care about is going to get hurt because she got tangled in my war. My heart stuttered. The woman you what? He looked at me, and I saw it all there, the fear and frustration and something deeper, something that made my chest ache. The woman I'm falling in love with, he said quietly. Even though I shouldn't be, even though it complicates everything, the words hung in the air between us. Severin, my phone rang. Unknown number. We both froze. I answered on speaker. Ms. Ames, I'm disappointed. Silas's voice was cold now, the amusement gone. I gave you multiple chances to walk away. Instead, you went to the authorities. How did you? I have people everywhere, including in places you think are secure. Did you really think your little meeting with Agent Reeves would stay private? He laughed, but it was a bitter sound. You've accelerated my timeline, which means I have to get creative. What does that mean? Severin's voice was deadly quiet. Viscari, wonderful. You can both hear this. A pause. Check Safe Haven's account. Right now. Severin was already pulling out his phone, accessing systems he shouldn't have access to. His face went white. What? I asked. $50,000. Deposited in the last hour from an offshore account flagged by international crime agencies. His hands were shaking. He just made Safe Haven look complicit in money laundering. And Tamsin? Silas asked pleasantly. Sweet, trusting Tamsin, who just accepted a generous donation for her noble cause. She's now going to be questioned about why she knowingly accepted dirty money. Her reputation destroyed, her organization dismantled, all because you two couldn't leave well enough alone. Rage, pure and bright, flooded through me. You're using women's safety as a weapon. I'm using Vescari's supposed moral superiority as a weapon. He always claimed he'd never touch the shelters, never exploit vulnerable women. Now everyone will see that his protection was just another front for his criminal empire. That's not. The authorities will be notified within the hour, probably by Agent Reeves herself, once her team flags the transaction. By tomorrow morning, Safe Haven will be shut down pending investigation. Every woman currently in their protection will have to find somewhere else to go. Every future survivor will hesitate to reach out because they won't know if they can trust anyone. His voice turned vicious. And it's all on you two, because you couldn't let me win. The line went dead. I looked at Severin, saw my own horror reflected in his face. He's going to destroy them, I whispered. All of them. Every shelter, every woman. No. Severin's voice was steel. He's not, because we're going to stop him. How? He just created evidence of actual money laundering. Even if we prove he planted it, the damage is done. Then we prove it wasn't planted. We prove the donation is so blatantly dirty, so obviously wrong, that no legitimate organization would accept it knowingly. He was already making calls. I need forensic accounting on that transaction. I need the exact timestamp of when it hits Safe Haven's account. And I need documentation of every conversation Tamsin has had about that donation in the last 24 hours. I grabbed my laptop, already pulling up Safe Haven's systems. I can access their donor correspondence logs. If Tamsin received an email or call about this donation, there should be a record. We worked in frantic silence, him on the phone coordinating his team, me digging through digital records, looking for anything that would prove Safe Haven was a victim, not a participant. And slowly, a picture emerged. The donation had come through with no advance notice, no pledge card, no donor communication, no paper trail. It had just appeared in the account with a note listing it as anonymous contribution. But Tamsin, following proper procedure, had immediately flagged it as suspicious and sent an email to her board chair asking whether they should return it. That email had been sent 4 hours ago, before the deposit had even cleared. We have it, I breathed. Proof that Tamsin questioned the donation immediately, that she was trying to do the right thing. Severin looked at what I'd found. Relief and something fiercer crossed his face. That's not enough to clear Safe Haven completely, but it's enough to reframe them as victims of fraud rather than willing participants. He looked at me. Leora, I need you to do something. What? I need you to take this evidence to Agent Reeves, tonight, before Silas can tip them off and control the narrative. Why me? Because you have credibility with her. You went to them voluntarily, showed good faith. If I walk in now, I look like a desperate criminal trying to cover his tracks. But you look like a concerned consultant protecting her client and the organizations you care about. He was right. I hated that he was right. What are you going to do? I asked. I'm going to end this. His voice was cold, final. Silas has been operating through shell companies and offshore accounts. That infrastructure leaves traces. My people are going to find every trace he's left, every transaction he's made, every connection he's used. And then I'm going to bury him in evidence so damning that no investigator will have any doubt about who the real criminal is. How long will that take? If we're lucky, 12 hours. If not, he looked at me. We're going to be lucky, because we don't have a choice. I grabbed my coat, my laptop, the evidence we'd compiled. At the door, I turned back. Severin? Yes? Earlier, you said you were falling in love with me. His eyes locked on mine. I did. I'm falling in love with you too. Even though you terrify me and your world is dangerous, and this whole thing is probably going to blow up in my face. I took a shaky breath. But when this is over, if we're still standing, I want to try. Actually try. To build something that doesn't require me to give up pieces of myself. Something that looked like hope crossed his face. When this is over, we'll build whatever you want. On your terms. Promise. Promise. I kissed him then, hard and fast and desperate. Then I left before I could change my mind. The war wasn't over, but for the first time, I felt like we might actually win it. Agent Reeves met me at her office at 9 p.m. She looked tired and annoyed at being called in late, but her expression sharpened when she saw what I'd brought. This is Tamsin Hale's correspondence, I said, spreading the printed emails across her desk. The director of Safe Haven. 4 hours before that suspicious $50,000 donation cleared. She flagged it as concerning and asked her board chair whether they should return it. Reeves read the email carefully. This doesn't prove the donation is fraudulent. No, but it proves Safe Haven didn't solicit it and immediately questioned its legitimacy. I pulled out more documents. And this shows the donation came from an offshore account that's been flagged by international financial crime agencies. No legitimate donor uses that kind of structure. Unless they're trying to hide the source for tax reasons. Or unless someone's trying to make Safe Haven look complicit in money laundering. I met her eyes. Agent Reeves, someone is actively targeting these organizations. The pattern I showed you 3 days ago, it's accelerating. And I think whoever's behind it just made a critical mistake by being too obvious. She studied me for a long moment. You're very invested in protecting Safe Haven. I worked there for 3 years. I know these people. They're not criminals. They're social workers and advocates who are stretched too thin and underfunded. My voice shook slightly. And if this investigation destroys them, every woman who needs help will suffer. What about Vescary? My chest tightened. What about him? He funds Safe Haven. He's your client. If this pattern you've identified is real, he's either a victim or a perpetrator. She leaned forward. Which is it, Ms. Ames? I thought about Severin's face when he'd told me about Annalise, about the shell companies he'd built that looked too much like Silas's weapon, about the way he'd said he was falling in love with me right before everything exploded. I don't know, I said honestly. I know what he's told me. I know what I've seen. But I also know that good intentions don't excuse careless infrastructure. If he's built systems that enabled this attack, he bears responsibility, even if he didn't intend the outcome. Reeves's expression shifted slightly, something that might have been respect. That's a remarkably clear-eyed answer. She tapped the emails. I'll have my team look into this. But Ms. Ames, if you're protecting someone who's actually guilty, you'll go down with them. I understand. Do you? Because from where I'm sitting, you look like a smart woman who's gotten in over her head with a dangerous man. Fear twisted in my stomach, but I forced myself not to look away. Her voice softened slightly. If you need help extracting yourself, I don't. The words came out sharper than I intended. I'm not some naive victim who got seduced by power. I made choices with open eyes, and I'll live with the consequences. Even if those consequences include criminal charges, even then. She nodded slowly. All right, we'll be in touch. I walked out of that building feeling like I'd just jumped off a cliff without knowing if there was water below. My phone rang. Severin. This time I answered. It's done, I said. I gave them everything. Thank you. His voice was rough with exhaustion. Are you at home? About to be. Why? Because David's going to bring you to the Tribeca property. And before you argue, it's not about control. It's about the fact that Silas knows you went to the authorities, and you're not safe in your apartment anymore. Every instinct screamed to refuse, to insist on my own space, my own choices. But I also wasn't stupid. Okay, I said, but I'm keeping my laptop and my files. I'm still working. I wouldn't expect anything less. The Tribeca penthouse felt different at night, less like a showpiece and more like a sanctuary. Floor-to-ceiling windows showed the city glittering below, but thick curtains could turn it into a cave if needed. Severin was in his study when I arrived, surrounded by papers and laptop screens, talking in rapid Italian to someone on the phone. He looked up when I entered, and something in his expression cracked when he saw me. He ended the call mid-sentence. You came, he said. You asked. You could have refused. I could have. I set my bag down. But I'm tired of fighting battles on multiple fronts. Silas is enough of an enemy without us being at odds too. He moved around the desk, closing the distance between us. Are we at odds? I don't know. Are we? I met his eyes. I went to the authorities without telling you. I made a unilateral decision that affects your entire operation. You have every right to be furious. I'm not furious. He stopped a foot away, close enough to touch but not touching. I'm terrified and impressed and in love with a woman who's brave enough to do what's right even when it costs her. My breath caught. You said falling before. I was trying to maintain some emotional distance. It didn't work. His hand came up, fingers brushing my jaw. I'm in love with you, Leora. Completely. Even though it's complicated and dangerous and probably the worst possible timing. I love you too. The words felt like jumping off that cliff again. Even though you built systems that enabled this attack, even though your world is violence and shadows, even though I'm terrified of becoming my mother. You won't, his voice was fierce. Because I won't let you disappear. I'll fight you before I'll let that happen. Promise? Promise. He kissed me then, and it was different from the elevator or the penthouse couch. This was slower, deeper, like we had all the time in the world, even though we both knew we didn't. When he pulled back, we were both breathing hard. Come here, he said, taking my hand and leading me out of the study, not to the bedroom, to the living room with its massive windows and city lights painting patterns across the floor. He pulled me down onto the couch, and suddenly we were a tangle of limbs and breathless kisses, his hands in my hair and mine clutching his shoulders. Tell me to stop, he said against my throat. No. Tell me what you want. You, this, everything. I pulled back just enough to look at him. I'm choosing this, Severin, with full knowledge of what your world is, not because I need saving or security, but because I want you. Something fierce and possessive flashed in his eyes. Say it again. I choose you. He kissed me harder, walking me backward until my back hit the window. The cold glass was a shock against my heated skin, and I gasped. His hands found the zipper of my dress. Yes? Yes. The dress pulled at my feet. His shirt followed, then his belt, and suddenly there was just skin and heat and the desperate need to get closer. He lifted me, and I wrapped my legs around his waist as he carried me back to the couch. We fell together, a controlled collapse that ended with him braced above me, his eyes dark and intense. You're sure? He asked one more time. I'm sure. What followed was heat and hunger and hands learning every inch of each other. He was careful and thorough and devastating, taking his time despite the urgency thrumming between us. "Leora," he said, my name a prayer and a promise. Then he moved, and I was lost. We came apart together, clinging to each other like we could anchor ourselves against the chaos waiting outside these walls. After, we lay tangled on the couch, his hand tracing patterns on my spine, my head on his chest, listening to his heartbeat slow. "I won't let him destroy what we're building," Severin said quietly. "The organizations, your firm, us, none of it." "How?" "By being smarter and faster and more ruthless than he expects." His arms tightened around me. "And by proving that the systems I built can be used for protection just as easily as they've been weaponized for attack." I lifted my head to look at him. "What does that mean?" "It means I'm going to dismantle my own infrastructure. Every shell company, every anonymous account, every privacy protection I built. I'm going to voluntarily expose it all to investigators." My heart stopped. "Severin, that's the only way to prove the difference between legitimate privacy and criminal conspiracy." His jaw was set. "If I show them everything, walk them through every transaction, prove that my systems were designed to protect identity without facilitating crime, then when Silas's structures are compared to mine, the differences will be obvious. But that exposes everything. Your other operations, your connections, my sister." He said it quietly. "Yes, it puts Annalise at risk. It destroys the anonymity that's kept her safe for 2 years." "You can't." "I have to." He sat up, pulling me with him, so I was straddling his lap, his hands framing my face. "Because the alternative is watching these organizations burn and every woman who depends on them suffer, including my sister, who will be exposed anyway when investigators dig deep enough into why I fund specific shelters. There has to be another way. There isn't. Not one that stops this fast enough." His thumb traced my lower lip. "But I need you to help me do it right. Your instincts for how organizations actually work, your understanding of what survivors need. I need that to make sure when we expose everything, we do it in a way that protects the people who matter while burning Silas's credibility." I thought about what he was offering to sacrifice: his privacy, his operational security, his sister's safety, all to protect organizations he didn't own and people he'd never met. "What do you need me to do?" I asked. The next 12 hours were controlled chaos. Severin's team compiled every financial record, every shell company document, every anonymous transaction that had ever touched the Solace Fund. I worked with them to create a narrative structure that would make sense to investigators. Not just numbers on a page, but a story of how a man with dangerous enemies had tried to protect vulnerable organizations without compromising the women they served. At the same time, Severin's forensic accountants were tearing apart Silas's digital trail. Every shell company he'd reactivated, every fake donation he'd planted, every offshore account he'd used. And slowly, a picture emerged that was damning in its clarity. Silas had used 9 different entities to make donations to Safe Haven and the Solace Gala. Every single one traced back to accounts flagged for previous financial crimes. Every donation amount was calculated to look generous, without triggering automatic scrutiny. And the timing was designed specifically to make it look like Severin was celebrating survivor tragedies. "He's not just framing you," I said, staring at the pattern on my laptop screen. "He's building a narrative that would permanently destroy public trust in shelter organizations. Every future survivor would wonder if they're just pawns in someone's criminal empire." "Which is why we have to beat him to the narrative." Severin was on his phone again, this time with his lawyer. "We're going to Agent Reeves with everything. Tomorrow morning, full voluntary disclosure." "What about Annalise?" His jaw tightened. "I called her, told her what's coming. She's not happy, but she understands why it's necessary." "I'm sorry." "Don't be. This is my fault. I built systems without thinking hard enough about their vulnerabilities. She's paying the price for my carelessness." He looked at me. "But after this, I'm rebuilding everything, with better safeguards, better oversight, and someone who actually understands the human cost of financial structure. Someone, you." He moved closer. "I meant what I said. Before. When this is over, I want you as a full partner in the Solace Fund. Not just event coordination, strategic oversight, donor vetting, organizational protection, using your instincts and ethics to make sure what I build actually serves the people it's supposed to help. That's not event planning. No, it's bigger than that. It's using your full skill set instead of just the parts that fit into a narrow job description. His hands settled on my waist. You'd still have your firm, your autonomy, your own income, but you'd also have the resources to make a real difference in how these organizations operate. I thought about the pattern I'd caught, about Tamsin's frightened voice asking why her donation database had been breached, about the women whose safety depended on these organizations staying functional. Yes, I said. After this is over, if we're still standing, yes. For the first time in my life, the word partner didn't sound like a cage. It sounded like a weapon we could wield together. He kissed me, hard and possessive. We'll be standing, I promise you that. My phone rang at 4 a.m. Unknown number. We were both still awake, working in Severin's study. He looked up sharply when he saw my screen. I answered on speaker. Ms. Ames. Silas's voice was cold, clipped. I hear you've been very busy. So have you. Indeed. Planting evidence, building frames, watching you two scramble like rats in a maze. He laughed, but there was no humor in it. But here's what you haven't considered. Even if you prove my donations are fraudulent, the damage is done. Safe Haven is under investigation. Your firm's reputation is destroyed before it even starts. And the Solace Fund? Everyone will always wonder if Fiscari's charity was just a front. Is there a point to this call? Severin asked, his voice deadly calm. The point, old friend, is that you lose either way. Even if I go to prison, even if you expose everything and prove your innocence, the organizations you tried to protect are permanently tainted. Every donor will hesitate. Every survivor will doubt. You tried to build something clean in a dirty world, and I've proven it can't be done. You've proven you're willing to hurt vulnerable women to get revenge on me, Severin said, which tells investigators everything they need to know about who the real criminal is. Does it? Or does it just prove that your world touches everything with rot? That anyone who gets close to you, including your idealistic little event planner, ends up compromised? Silas's voice turned vicious. How does it feel, Ms. Ames, knowing that your association with Fiscari has permanently destroyed your credibility? That no legitimate organization will hire you once they know you were tangled up in this? Ice flooded my veins. Because he was right. Even if we proved our innocence, the stain would remain. I don't care, I said, and I meant it. I'd rather fail doing the right thing than succeed by walking away from people who need help. Silence on the other end. Then, you really believe that? Yes. You're either incredibly brave or incredibly stupid. Silas paused. Fiscari, you chose better than I expected. Too bad you're both going down anyway. The line went dead. Severin was already moving, pulling up multiple screens, checking security feeds. He's going to move tonight, he said. That call was him trying to shake us before his final play. What final play? Whatever it is, it'll be public and damaging and designed to inflict maximum harm before we can counter it. He made 3 calls in rapid succession, his voice sharp and commanding. We need to move faster. The voluntary disclosure happens now, tonight. It's 4 a.m, which is why it'll work. Reeves will see us as desperate enough to come in at an insane hour, which makes our story more credible. He was already gathering documents, organizing folders with ruthless efficiency. Get dressed, professional, put together like someone who has nothing to hide. I changed quickly, pulling on the clothes I'd worn to meet with Reeves before. When I emerged, Severin was in a suit despite the hour, looking like he was about to negotiate a corporate merger instead of potentially confessing to financial crimes. Ready? He asked. No, but let's go anyway. Agent Reeves looked genuinely shocked when we appeared in her office lobby at 4:47 a.m. Ms. Ames, Mr. Fiscari. She studied us with sharp, assessing eyes. This is unexpected. We have evidence of a coordinated fraud scheme targeting charitable organizations, I said. And we believe the person behind it is about to make a public move that will destroy innocent people. We need to give you everything now, before that happens. She looked at Severin. Everything? Every financial record of the Solace Fund. Every shell company structure I've ever used. Every anonymous donation. Every privacy protection. Every system I built to fund these organizations. His voice was steady. Complete transparency and full cooperation with your investigation. That's not typical behavior for someone with something to hide. I'm not hiding anything, not anymore. He set a banker's box on her desk. But I need you to understand the difference between privacy protection and criminal conspiracy before Silas Corver spins a narrative that destroys the organizations I've tried to help. Reeves looked at the box, then at us. Silas Corver, your former financial architect. Yes, the same Silas Corver who's been setting up shell companies to make donations to Safe Haven and your Solace Gala. You already know. I felt relief and terror in equal measure. We've been investigating him for the past 6 hours since you brought me that evidence about Safe Haven's suspicious donation. She pulled out files. His digital footprint is careless, arrogant. He left traces everywhere, including communications with a non-profit fraud attorney who's been preparing to blow the whistle on a major money laundering conspiracy involving women's shelters. When? Severin asked sharply. This morning, he scheduled a press conference for 9 a.m., where he claims to be exposing a criminal enterprise masquerading as charity. She looked at Severin. You would have been named as the central figure. My hands clenched into fists. You have to stop him. We already have. She opened another file. Based on the evidence you provided and our own investigation, we arrested Silas Corver at 3:15 this morning on charges of fraud, conspiracy to commit money laundering, and illegal access to financial systems. He's in custody. The room spun. He's arrested, I repeated. Yes. The press conference has been canceled. And while our investigation into the Solace Fund and related entities is ongoing, preliminary evidence suggests the donations were fraudulent attempts to frame legitimate charitable work. She looked at Severin. Though I'm very interested in the contents of that box you just handed me. It's everything, Severin said. Systems I built to protect donor privacy without facilitating crime. You'll find they're similar to Silas's structures because he learned from me. But the key differences will show legitimate use versus criminal intent. And you're voluntarily exposing all of this because the alternative is watching organizations that save lives get destroyed in the crossfire. His voice was quiet but absolute. I built systems without considering how they could be weaponized. That's on me, and I'm willing to accept the consequences if it means protecting the people who actually matter. Reeves studied him for a long moment. You're either very noble or very smart about damage control. Can't it be both? Her mouth twitched in what might have been a smile. We'll be reviewing everything in that box. This doesn't clear you, I understand. But it's a strong indicator of good faith cooperation. She stood. You're both free to go, but stay available. We'll have more questions. We walked out of that building into the gray light of dawn. I felt hollowed out, exhausted, but also lighter than I'd been in days. Is it really over? I asked. This part is. Severin took my hand. There'll be more investigation, more questions, more scrutiny. But Silas is in custody, and the narrative is ours to control. What about Annalise? Safe. I talked to her while you were changing. She's relocating again. Different identity, different city. She's not happy, but she's alive. His jaw tightened. And she'll stay that way. We reached his car. David was driving, respectfully keeping his eyes forward as we slid into the back seat. Where to? Severin asked me. I don't know. Home? The office? Somewhere with very strong coffee. Or, he said quietly, back to the penthouse, where we can sleep for 8 hours and then figure out what comes next. I thought about my tiny apartment with its questionable heating and the endless to-do list waiting. Then I thought about Severin's penthouse with its city views and the feeling of being seen and chosen and safe. Together? I asked. Always. Okay, together. 3 months later, I stood in the fully renovated Safe Haven office, watching 50 women and their advocates fill the room for the Solace Gala we'd finally, successfully held. The investigation had cleared the Solace Fund completely. Silas was facing 15 years in federal prison, and the publicity around the attempted fraud had actually increased donations to Safe Haven and similar organizations as people rallied around entities that had been targeted for doing good work. My firm had 4 new clients, organizations that wanted someone with both fundraising expertise and the integrity to blow the whistle when something felt wrong. The Solace Fund partnership had given me access to resources I'd never imagined, while the separate contract structure kept my autonomy intact. Tamsin found me by the refreshment table. "You did it," she said, pulling me into a hug. "This event is perfect." "We did it," I corrected. "You kept Safe Haven running through an investigation that could have destroyed you. Because you found the pattern before it was too late, and because you risked your own reputation to protect us." She pulled back, studying my face. "Are you happy, Leora?" I looked across the room to where Severin was talking to a shelter director. His posture relaxed in a way it never was in his other world. He'd testified at Silas's preliminary hearing, voluntarily exposing pieces of his operation that he'd protected for years. The cost had been significant: loss of anonymity, operational constraints, ongoing federal monitoring. But the organizations were safe. Annalise was safe. And the systems he was rebuilding had oversight built in from the start. As if sensing my gaze, he looked up and met my eyes. The intensity there still made my breath catch. But now it was familiar, chosen, mine. "Yes," I said to Tamsin, "I'm happy." Later, when the event had ended and the last guest had left, Severin found me in the now empty space. "Ready to go home?" he asked. Home. Not his place or mine, but the life we'd been building together over 3 months of late-night planning sessions and negotiated boundaries, and learning how to let someone in without losing yourself. I'd kept my apartment. He'd kept his properties. But most nights, we ended up in one place or the other, choosing proximity over separation. We'd fought about it at first, my fear that spending too much time in his world would erase me, his frustration that I wouldn't just move in and make it simpler. But we'd figured it out, the same way we'd figured out how to merge our work without one person swallowing the other. Partnership on our terms. "Yes," I said, taking his offered hand. We walked out into the September evening, the city settling into its nighttime rhythm. "I have something for you," Severin said as we reached the car. "If it's a key to another property." "It's not," he pulled a folder from his briefcase. "It's the final version of the Solace Fund partnership agreement, with every amendment you requested, every boundary you demanded, every protection you negotiated." I took it, scanning the pages. Full autonomy over event strategy and donor vetting. Separate income streams that didn't create dependency. Clear ethical guidelines about what kinds of donors I could refuse regardless of their financial capacity. And a clause that gave me the right to walk away at any time without penalty if I felt the relationship had become compromising. Everything I'd asked for, in writing. "This is exactly what I wanted," I said quietly. "I know, because I listened." He pulled me closer. "I'm not your mother's husband, Leora. I won't use resources to control you or create dependency. And if you ever feel like I'm trying, you have the power and the means to leave." "I know." And I did. The past 3 months had proven it over and over, when I'd pushed back on his security protocols, when I'd vetoed a donor he wanted to cultivate, when I'd insisted on keeping my apartment and my separate finances. Every time, he'd negotiated instead of overriding, listened instead of dismissing, bent his world around my boundaries instead of expecting me to disappear into his. "I love you," I said. "I love you too." He kissed me softly. "Now sign the damn contract so we can make this official." I signed it in the back of the car, while David pretended not to listen. When I handed it back, Severin pulled out a pen and added his signature below mine. Then he pulled out his phone and took a picture of the signed document. "What are you doing?" I asked. "Sending proof to my lawyer, and to you. So we both have evidence that this partnership exists on your terms." He looked at me, and there was something vulnerable in his expression. "I never want you to doubt that you have power here, that you're choosing this freely." My throat tightened. "I don't doubt it." "Good, but I'm making sure you never have to." We drove through the city, past the buildings where we'd fought and negotiated, and slowly learned how to build something that didn't require either of us to shrink. Past Safe Haven, where women were rebuilding their lives with resources that would keep flowing because we'd protected them. Past my tiny first office, where I'd been so terrified of failure that I'd almost made the wrong choices. "Do you ever regret it?" Severin asked quietly. "Walking into my world? It's cost you so much. Scrutiny, investigation, months of stress." "No, I didn't even have to think about it. Before I met you, I was invisible, managing other people's visions, wasting my skills on work that kept me small and safe. Now I'm building something that matters, using my full capabilities, making decisions that protect people instead of just managing logistics. You could have done that without me. Maybe, but it would have taken longer, been harder, and I wouldn't have had a partner who pushes me to be better while still respecting my boundaries." I looked at him. "You make me braver, Severin, not because you protect me, but because you believe I can handle the consequences of my own choices." His hand tightened on mine. "You're the bravest person I know." "Then we're perfect for each other." He smiled, a real smile, not the cold, sharp thing he used in business. "Yeah, we are?" 6 months later, I was in my office, a real office now, with a staff of 3 and a client roster that would have seemed impossible a year ago. When my phone rang, unknown number, I almost didn't answer, but curiosity won. "Hello? Miss Ames." A woman's voice, slightly accented. "You don't know me, but I wanted to thank you." "Who is this?" "Someone whose brother loves her enough to risk everything to keep her safe. Someone who's alive because organizations like Safe Haven exist." A pause. "Someone who's very grateful that her brother finally found a partner who's as stubborn and ethical as he is." My breath caught. "Annalise, I can't talk long, and we'll probably never meet, it's safer that way, but I needed you to know that what you did mattered. Not just to my brother, but to every woman who'll be helped by the organizations you protected." Tears burned in my eyes. "I'm glad you're safe. I'm more than safe. I'm free. Because of places like Safe Haven, and people like you who fight for them." Her voice softened. "Take care of him, and let him take care of you. He needs to be needed by someone who won't let him bulldoze them." "I will." "Good. Goodbye, Leora." The line went dead. I sat there for a long moment, staring at my phone. Then I called Severin. "Your sister just called me," I said, when he answered. Silence. Then, "What did she say?" "That I should let you take care of me while also not letting you bulldoze me." He laughed, surprised and genuine. "That sounds like her." "She also said I should take care of you. And will you?" I thought about the life we were building, the careful balance of independence and partnership, the way we challenged each other without diminishing each other, the feeling of being seen completely, strengths and flaws and fears, and chosen anyway. "Yes," I said, "I will." "Good," I could hear the smile in his voice. "Because I'm about to bulldoze you about something." "What?" "I think you should move in. Actually move in, not this half-in-both-places situation we've been doing." My heart stuttered. "Severin, before you panic, hear me out. I'm not asking you to give up your apartment. Keep it, sublet it, use it as an office, whatever you want. But I'm asking you to make the penthouse your primary home, with me, as partners who've chosen to build a life together." "Why now?" "Because 6 months ago, you needed proof that I wouldn't trap you, that you could build your career and maintain your independence while being with me. And you have." His voice was quiet, intense. "You've proven, to yourself and to me, that being in my world doesn't erase you. So now I'm asking, will you choose to be here not because you're scared to leave, but because it's where you want to be?" I looked around my office, at the business I'd built, the autonomy I'd claimed, the proof that I could stand on my own. Then I thought about the penthouse, where Severin and I had negotiated our future over midnight strategy sessions and morning coffee, where we'd fought and reconciled and slowly learned how to be partners without possession. "Yes," I said, "I'll move in." "Really?" "Really, on one condition." "What's that?" "I get to redecorate. Your penthouse is beautiful, but it's all you. I want it to be us." He laughed. "Deal." Change whatever you want, as long as you're there. I moved in on a Saturday in March, 1 year after the Christmas gala where I'd kissed a stranger on a balcony and changed my life forever. Severin helped me unpack, making space in his closet and his bathroom and his perfectly organized office, making space in his life for someone who challenged and complicated and completed him. That night, we stood at the window looking out at the city that had witnessed our entire story. "Do you ever think about how this could have gone differently?" he asked. "If you hadn't found Silas's pattern, if you hadn't gone to the authorities, if you'd walked away when things got dangerous." Sometimes, I leaned back against him, but then I remember that I didn't walk away. I chose to stay and fight. I chose you. I chose this life. Why? His arms wrapped around me. Why risk everything for a man whose world is violence and shadows? Because you're not just violence and shadows. You're also someone who funds women's shelters and protects vulnerable organizations and rebuilds broken systems to be better. I turned to face him. And because when I'm with you, I'm not the invisible coordinator managing other people's dreams. I'm powerful, seen, and building something that matters. "You were always powerful," he said quietly. "I just gave you a stage big enough to show it." We gave each other stages. I kissed him softly. That's what partnership means. "Yeah," he pulled me closer. "It does." We stood there for a long time, two people who'd built something real in a dangerous world, who'd chosen each other despite the costs, who'd learned that being seen didn't mean being owned, and that love could exist without possession. I'd started this journey desperate to avoid becoming my mother, terrified that depending on a powerful man would erase me. But I'd learned something my mother never had the chance to discover, that choosing to build a life with someone wasn't the same as giving yourself away. That partnership could exist without possession, that being seen by the right person didn't make you smaller, it made you more yourself. I'd walked into Severin's world invisible and exhausted, managing everyone else's dreams while my own stayed locked away. I was walking forward powerful, seen, and building a future that belonged to both of us. And that made all the difference. Thank you for listening all the way to the end. If you enjoyed this story, please subscribe so you don't miss the next Mafia love story. And tell me in the comments where you're listening from. Thank you for letting my stories keep you company. It truly means more than you know.